Welcome to my counter series to the bad Roman commander videos. I figured it was all getting a bit too negative, and without leaving Roman history, for now, I want to have a look at something more lighthearted. So this is my first of my Chad Roman commander series. The criteria for what constitutes this category will I hope become obvious based on the choice of Roman generals and or army officers. For this one, I'm going to focus on a commander who brought something a little different to the table, in both his deeds and how he acted on the battlefield. The stereotype of a Roman commander seems to have been influenced by the Caesars and the Pompeys, that figure of a Roman commander on horseback who excels at moving pieces around the battlefield and planning his strategies before a battle has even commenced. But something that might get missed about Roman society is that their army, beyond just the tactics, discipline, and innovations, was built on heavy infantry. It was built on brutal hand-to-hand combat in close quarters. Some generals do appear to have been a bit shy to get involved in such things, but by the accounts that we have available to us, it seems today's commander was not. Today we are looking at one of the most lauded young generals active in the reign of the first emperor Augustus, Nero Claudius Drusus Germanicus. So sources first, as ever. A variety of sources mention Drusus and his accomplishments in Germania. He is mentioned several times in Suetonius' biographies of the emperors, specifically in the biography of Tiberius, his older brother, and Claudius, his son. A contemporary of the era, the soldier turned historian Velleius, also provides a short overview of his activities as it relates to Tiberius, who was the main focus of his works. And probably the most thorough account that has survived is from Cassius Dio's Roman History, but he was writing in the early 3rd century, some 200 years after Drusus died, so while he is helpful in fleshing out the details, he is not a contemporary source. Sadly and annoyingly, what should be among our best source for Drusus, from a Roman historian, did not survive. The last 5 books of Livy's Titanic History of Rome are known to have covered the career and death of Drusus. We know this because more than one summary of these books has survived, but a large number of the actual books have not, which is frustrating. We do, however, have a poem about him from Ovid's collection. The poem is one of the condolences to his mother after he died. His mother Livia was married to Augustus after divorcing Drusus's legal father. Additionally, it is believed Augustus himself wrote his biography, but that too did not come down to us either. But enough of that. So what makes Drusus a Chad among the Vestal Virgins? For starters, he was born into immense wealth and high standing, which is really all that mattered in ancient Rome if you wanted to get places quickly. His legal father was Tiberius Claudius Nero, and his mother was Livia Drusilla. His mother would separate from her first husband and marry Augustus just 3 days after Drusus was born. There were rumours that Drusus was in fact the child of Augustus, however these were compromised in terms of veracity by Emperor Claudius, who would encourage this version of events in order to bolster his connection to the lineage of Augustus. Claudius wasn't so secure in his position, at least he didn't think so. If he furthered these rumours though, it would make him a grandchild of the first emperor. Irrespective of any biological connection, Augustus doted heavily on his 2 stepsons, Drusus and Tiberius, fast-tracking them through Roman society. Thanks to Augustus, he was granted the ability to hold political offices 5 years before his usual legal age. With this, he became a quaestor at 23 and had been legislating as a praetor in his brother's stead before this. In addition to status, he was also by Velleius' account very good looking, as most successful people are. Velleius determined that he was almost as fair in looks as his brother Tiberius. And to give you an idea, Velleius spends most of his account halfway up Tiberius's arse, so you get the idea of how much praise that would entail. He was also, as it seems, adored by everyone, as shown by the outpouring of grief present upon his death. The best feel for that comes from the poem in Ovid's works, where he explains the loss felt by Rome and the grief shown by Augustus himself. But enough of the superficial stuff. Drusus is primarily known for doing what he loved most, campaigning in Gaul and Germania. He was to some extent the most successful Roman commander in Germania in their entire history, a region that caused them no end of trouble as it was awash with hostile tribes of fearsome barbarians. Julius Caesar had in his career defeated the Suebi under the Germanic king Ariovistus, but his campaigning did not take him far over the Rhine. Drusus, however, from his base in Lugdunum, in Gaul, embarked on campaigning that saw him push significantly into Germania. In these expeditions he defeated the following tribes, whose names I am surely going to butcher even worse than what he did to them. The Chauci, the Bructeri, the Tencteri, the Usipates, the Suevi, the Sicambri, and the Cherusci. Thanks to the Virgin Varus, the last tribe, the Cherusci, would become more famous a good 20 years later when the ambush at Teutoburg Forest cost the Romans everything Drusus had managed to gain. These victories were celebrated throughout Rome, as was shown in the coin record. Additionally, his troops named him Imperator, and there is a memorial mound erected by his troops, still standing today in Maine. He was clearly very popular with his legionaries. He was awarded an ovation in Rome, and had he lived past his final campaigns, no doubt he would have received more than this. But the greatest honour that can be seen awarded to him was his name. The additional name of Germanicus was awarded to him and his descendants. Hence his oldest son would become almost entirely known by that name, Germanicus. But although his son was a great general and was active in the same region, it was Drusus and not him that had earned the honour of that title. But the military accomplishments themselves were not actually the reason I selected him for the first Chad commander. At least not all of them anyway. In Suetonius' account, he talks about how the mother's side of the family had earned the name Drusus in the first place. The story goes that one of his ancestors defeated a Gallic king called Drusus in combat, and as such the family would earn their name for all of their descendants. This story must have resonated with Drusus himself. He was exceptionally brave, clearly, even by ancient standards, and his ultimate goal towards the end of his life was very clear. I have spoken before in the Spartacus video that the highest battlefield honour a Roman could obtain was called spolia opima, or translated that means rich spoils. This involved a Roman commander defeating an enemy king in single combat and then stripping the armour from his slain rival's corpse. There are only 3 confirmed occasions by Roman sources of this officially happening, 2 of which are part of Rome's legendary history, so are dubious historically, and one that was just before the Second Punic War by Marcus Claudius Marcellus, who may or may not be appearing in this series later. In order to be able to take this battlefield honour, you had to be a consul. Drusus, due to his popularity, made consul in 9 BC. Apparently, he then went completely mad for single combat. From the sources, it is believed at a minimum he fought 3 German chieftains in single combat during his campaigns. It is not completely confirmed whether or not he was able to actually win Spolia Opima before he died, but it is heavily suggested in the sources that for all intents and purposes, he had managed to. Given he didn't die in battle and isn't really recorded taking a loss anywhere, we can presume he met the basic requirements if he found the time in 9 BC before he died while he was consul. Sadly though, he was unable to return to Rome for the ceremony due to his death. Not that it seemed he was particularly enamoured with life in Rome, preferring to campaign and spend his life on the battlefield, like a true Chad Roman commander. I am aware his death was a little bit of a blotch on his Chad record. He fell off his horse while on campaign in 9 BC, the year of his consulship, and despite lingering on for a month, he died in the presence of his brother Tiberius, who had come to see him. Hear me out on this one though. Many a great Roman was killed by ordinary men. Caesar by several, Pompey on the shores of Egypt, Crassus by a random Parthian officer. Drusus was killed by a horse. The average man in Roman time was around 5'5" and 70 kilos in weight. The average length of a horse is about 8 foot and they weigh 200 to 700 kilos. So imagine a man who is 8 foot tall and around 400 kilos in weight, and that is the man that killed Drusus, which is a more badass way of looking at this. And with that, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Until next time, farewell.